The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has issued its fourth and latest report. It discusses the current state of scientific knowledge on global warming. In that report, it concludes that human activity, primarily increased greenhouse gas concentrations during the fossil fuel burning, is very likely responsible for the overall increase in global surface temperatures. Immediately after the report was released, Arctic temperatures plunged most of northern hemisphere into a deep freeze. Funny, huh? Upstate New York is digging out from a snowstorm that dumped as much as 10 feet of snow in a matter of days. Sub-freezing temperatures were recorded from Southern California to southern Florida, destroying as much as 80% of the citrus crops in the affected areas. Ironically, the week that Al Gore unveiled his movie, An Inconvenient Truth, predicting catastrophic effects from global warming, New York City experienced the coldest day in its history. That's not to say that temperatures haven't been rising. The two hottest years on record were recorded in 1998 and 2005. But the UN is talking about permanent climatic change, and that's where meteorologists differ in their opinions. For example, the UNIPCC report cites an increase in the frequency and intensity of hurricane activity since the 1970s as evidence of permanent climate change. Some meteorologists point out that similar increases in hurricane activity also occurred during the 1930s and 1940s before subsiding for 3 decades. In the 1930s, nearly a decade of severe heat and drought in the Midwest was symbolized by the Oklahoma Dust Bowl. People were talking about global warming then, too. But then the weather pattern shifted the other way. And in the 60s and early 70s, scientists were warning of an approaching ice age. The United Nations assessment is essentially based on weather forecasts extending 50 years or more into the future. Now, anybody who has ever relied on the accuracy of a 10-day weather forecast knows that a forecast extended beyond the day after tomorrow is just an educated guess subject to change. As far as I can tell, the real debate is not over whether the climate may gradually be warming, and by that I mean over the next century, but whether that warming is caused by man or is just a part of a normal cycle of this earth. Is the climate moving toward irreparable, permanent destruction of the Earth's ecology? Or is it exhibiting the same ups and downs it has demonstrated throughout history? I know this: global warming will never reach such catastrophic proportions it'll destroy this planet. For God promised us in Genesis 8:22, quote, "While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease." When answering the question, what will be the sign of your coming, one of the things Jesus Christ cited was the increase in frequency and magnitude of storms just before he returns. In Luke chapter 21, verses 25 and 26, Jesus warned, "There will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and on the earth dismay among nations, in perplexity at the roaring of the sea and the waves, men fainting from fear and the expectation of the things which are coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken." Note, Jesus emphasized the great storm that will strike from the sea. We now know that these great storms are caused by warming trends, but I don't think it's significant whether the warming trends are caused by man or natural phenomena. Storms are storms, and Jesus predicted that in the last days they would grow so intense that nations will be in dismay and perplexity because of the roaring of the waves caused by these storms. No matter what you hear, nobody knows for certain if global warming is permanent or just a part of a normal weather cycle. We've only been keeping records for a little over 100 years, And the cause, if there is one, is a matter of scientific dispute. For instance, since the year 2000, solar eruptions have broken all standing records, both in frequency and intensity. With each solar storm, scientists have warned of communication disruptions, dangerous radiation, and other unspecified but dire consequences. Perhaps the sun's explosive radiation bursts are damaging our atmosphere as much as greenhouse gases. Jesus didn't warn specifically of global warming, but he did warn about things that can result from global warming. The cause is not important. The results are. But he also warned, now when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. Note, Jesus emphasizes here that it would be when all these things begin to happen that his coming is near. And he made his dead-on predictions 2,000 years ago. Today, with all our technology, we still can't trust the weatherman's 10-day forecast. But it's the long-range weather forecast that has everyone's heart palpitating. Coincidence? I don't think so. I'll be right back.